Howdy folks, and welcome to part 5 of what was supposed to be a 3-part series. Today we're going to finally get the fuel tank rinsed out, cleaned out as best we can, and get everything reassembled and put back together. Now, we are going to have to make some changes to the fuel tank and the fuel tank pickup because we don't have that electric fuel pump in there anymore. So we're going to take you through, we're going to show you what we're doing to change that over so that it'll work well with the mechanical fuel pump and get the fuel. We still have some repairs we got to make on the fuel tank, but we'll go ahead and get all that done today, and then hopefully we can go ahead and button it back up here real soon because we got to put the door back on. We're supposed to get some rain later this afternoon. So let's get started on it. Okay, now comes the fun part. Trying to get this tank cleaned out. We've let it air out for a few days, so there shouldn't be any horrendous gas fumes in there. We're not going to take any heat to the tank anyway, so we shouldn't have any issues with that. But let's go ahead and see if we can get you guys a good view of what we're dealing with inside the tank here. Okay, here we go. The bottom of the tank really doesn't look too terribly bad. It's the top of the tank that's from about the seam on up that's really bad, and unfortunately because of the baffle there, we're not going to be able to really get in there and do a good job of cleaning it out. So, and all we're really trying to do is just make it so that it's serviceable for the memorial ride we're going to do. And then his widow's, it's going to be up to her as to how much she wants to put into it, and if she wants to, if she's going to sell it, or what she's going to do with it. Okay, now before we take the pressure washer to it, we're going to go ahead and get in here with some brushes, some wire brushes, and try to brush some of this loose stuff off of the inside of the cap. And the inside of the filler neck. That's a whole lot better. We're also going to run the brush on the inside here and try to break some of the loose rust around the filler neck and the upper part of the tank, as best we can. This is why it's going to be so important to keep that filter, that glass element fuel filter on the fuel line before the fuel pump, to go ahead and keep this from keep it from plugging up and trashing the fuel pump, because no matter what we do here, we're still going to end up with some debris and some stuff that's going to break loose and work loose over time. I've had to do this before with a couple of my trucks because of the ethanol fuel that, trucks that don't get run very often. You get moisture in the fuel tank because of the fuel, and it puts a little bit of corrosion in the tank. Well, you start driving it around a little bit, and it'll go ahead and loosen the stuff in the tank, and then it gets into the fuel lines. And like I said, we're not doing a full-blown restoration or repair job on this. We're just basically trying to get it so that it's serviceable enough to make the memorial ride. shook out an awful lot of stuff that was stuck behind the baffles. Trust me, there was a lot of it. Now we're going to try a little bit of gentle persuasion here. Here we go. We're gonna see what we can do with the pressure washer here. Now we'll let it drain down for a little bit and take a look and see what we get. Just to remind you guys that the stuff that's coming out of there, that brown color, none of that's oily. So we're not contaminating the earth. It's dirt and rust. So that's what's coming out of it. As you can see, the water coming out is actually fairly clean, so I think that it's still pretty nasty looking in there, but it's not anywhere near as bad as it was. So I think by getting the worst of the loose chunks out of there, that we're going to be able to let her dry out. And I'm going to go ahead and get my heat gun out here and stuff my heat gun down in there to help dry it out a little bit quicker. We got one more thing to deal with. We got a broken screw right here on the fuel sending unit. The fuel sending unit was completely rusted and destroyed. So, but in my hidey hole of spare parts, I've got another sending unit that may or may not work, but it's going to work better than the one that was in there. So, but looks like we're going to have to try to drill that screw out, and so that we can get all 5 of them on there, so it'll seal. Seeing that the fuel tank is right underneath the driver's seat. Okay, one of the first things we've got to do here before we get too far carried along, we've got to drill out and remove that screw. So, in order to do that, I'll take a sending unit, stick it down in there. Now, this is the way it should be pointed. No. Yeah, that's the way it should be pointed. Because this bolt pattern is not an equidistant bolt pattern. Well, there we go, right there. So that's how she's lined up. And we'll go ahead and get 3 screws in there so that everything is lined up. And then this will help to center the drill bit. And all we're going to do is just put a little spot drill on it. Just spot the center so that we're centered right up in that, on that broken drill. Real slow, real easy, until we get a nice little spot on there. What that's going to do is that when we go in with a smaller diameter drill to core it and drill out the center, the bit's not gonna slip. Now see how we've got a nice little spot started there. Now we're gonna go with something that's just a little bit smaller. Probably a little bit smaller than that. So what we want to do is kind of relieve the pressure on there, and we might be able to get it out with an easy out. No guarantees. But the key is to go ahead and drill nice and slow and easy. The slower you go, the more control you have, and you see how it's cutting a nice chip, and you're gonna be less likely to burn the bit. There we go. Reverse it. And we'll go get a little easy out and see if we can bring that thing out of there. Now, I have never had a whole lot of luck with easy outs. But one of the things that I have learned is trying to do it with a, yeah, that's stuck in there still pretty good. Yeah. One of the things though was to go ahead and use a tap handle like this. You can get a tap handle set, you know, like this pretty cheap at Harbor Freight, but it gives you a lot better control than trying to hang on to it with a wrench. But this is that's still wedged in there pretty tight. So rather than screw around with it much more, I'm gonna put this back, put the sending unit back in it, and then I'm gonna go in with the proper tap drill size. We're gonna drill it to the proper tap drill size for 1032. I believe this is 1032, and then we're gonna tap it. So let me go get those tools and I'll be right back. All right. We've got a number 21 drill, which is the correct size for a 1032 cutting tap. We're going to go ahead and put the sending unit back in there so that we still have a guide. Get our 3 screws put back in. Throw the screwdriver on the ground. That's always part of the procedure. You got to drop the screwdriver at least frickin' once. Or twice. Okay. Now, these holes do not go all the way through into the tank, so you have to be careful when you're doing this not to go ahead and push all the way through. Once it gets through the screw, that's as far as you need to go. Now, we're going to pull our easy out and put our 1032 tap in. Now, this is a bottoming tap. And as you see, it doesn't have that sharp point on it. And what this is going to do is this is going to help cut threads into a blind hole, which is what this effectively is, without and you know, being able to get, and you'll be able to get a much deeper thread depth, which is what we want here. So what I'm hoping we're doing here is just chasing some of the extra material out, but chasing the threads so that we can get a good thread in there. And I'm not using any cutting oil because we're really not cutting a whole lot. Well, let's see what this has done here. It appears that we have some good threads there. You know, we still have part of the old screw. It did not get done 100% on center, which is really difficult to do unless you set it up in a mill. But what we've got is good enough threads to go ahead and get the screw to bite and hold. All right, now we did drop a few metal shavings down in there, so we are going to go in and do one last clean out with the shop vac here. Okay, now that we've got the tank cleaned out, we've got it vacuumed out after fixing this, we're going to show you what the inside of the tank looks like, and you can compare it to what it looked like before. It's still not perfect. It's still not even close to what I would consider being really good, but I've run worse tanks, and as long as you keep a good fuel filter on it, they'll actually clean up fairly, you know, they won't clean up, but they, you know, will remain serviceable. So there we go. Clean fuel tank, or as clean as it's going to get. Okay, now we're going to show you what we're doing in the way of a fuel pickup. This is this was actually in box of parts. This had to have been from somebody who had done a mechanical fuel pump or an external electrical fuel pump modification at some point in time. And what they've done is that they've removed the fuel pump from the fitting here and just put in an inverted flare fitting with a pickup pipe in it. The problem with this setup is there's no filter. So there's nothing, no screen to go ahead and block the big chunks from coming up into this 90-degree fitting right here and plugging things up and starving your vehicle for fuel. So what we're going to do is we've got some fittings here and a screen. This screen I picked up that was from a batch of stuff that I got in an estate that I cleaned out. So I can't tell you how to, where to source anything like this. I'm gonna guess you might be able to source something like this from, say, a hydraulic supply place or something like this. But this is just 5/16 tube fitting. It's got the little, you can see it's got the little ferrule in there. So what we're going to do, but we're going to have to cut this a little bit shorter because when you set it down in the tank, it comes right above the tank bottom, and this obviously is going to add some length to the overall on this. So what we have to do is we've got to figure out basically how much we have to cut off. This is the 5/16 tube to 1/8" pipe, 1/8" pipe coupler, and this is 1/8" pipe to I think it's 1/4 inch inverted flare, and that's what this is. This is how the whole thing is going to go together. So what I've got to do is I've got to figure out the distance between here and here, and the distance between this surface and the bottom of the tank. So we're going to measure this here. This is all mocked up, and this is measuring at looks about 8 1/8 inches. So we go over to the tank and we measure the tank, and the tank is from the flange here to the bottom of the tank is 8 inches. So we want that sitting a little bit off the bottom, so we probably need to trim about 3/16 of an inch off of the bottom of this tube. We're going to pull this off, and we're going to do something a little unorthodox here. I think we're going to try something, because this is thin wall, and if you get a tubing cutter on this, we might be able to get that. Let's mark that at 3/16 of an inch. But if not, what we're going to do is go in with one of these drills, and at 5/16 it'll go ahead and just trim this down, and this will act as a pilot. So let's actually try that first. So we need to get a marking utensil, which I normally carry in my pocket. There it is. And measure out 3/16 of an inch. One, two, 3/16 of an inch. We'll mark it right there. Now we will take our fancy dancy step drill on the slow speed and turn in the right direction. That's down right about 3/16 of an inch. And we'll just peel the rest of it, peel the excess off. And there we have it. We'll get a file and then just clean this off. Go. We'll set that back on there. Take another measurement. And that measures right at about 8 inches. So that'll keep it about 1/8 of an inch off the bottom of the tank, so it'll keep all the crud down at the bottom of the tank. And and we need to set this off at an angle like that. So now we got to go get a wrench, tighten that up, tighten all the rest of this stuff up. We don't need to put any thread sealant on it because honestly it's not going to be under pressure, and if it pulls from, you know, through the threads just a little bit, it's not going to be the end of the world. Okay. All right, let's make sure of our orientation again here. That's the way the tank is supposed to be. So that is the way that's going to be. Right. All right, have any of you guys ever experienced problems with the newer Craftsman wrenches? I bought Craftsman because I thought that it was good USA quality made stuff. Well, it used to be, not anymore. This is a 1/2 inch wrench, 1/2 inch Craftsman, 1/2 inch Craftsman wrench, made in USA. This one says it's forged in the USA, but I am suspicious because this 1/2 inch wrench will fit right down on top of that fitting. This 1/2 inch wrench will not. Something is amiss. There we go, all nice and tight. Probably go a little bit tighter on this. And there we have it. All right. So we're ready, just about ready to put this in, except we have no gasket for it. The gasket that was on it disintegrated, and all I had my hidey hole of parts was this rather roached out old gasket. But we can't obviously use that as a gasket to go ahead and seal the tank, but we can use it for a pattern. And I'm going to show you something, a nifty little tool that I got. It's old school stuff. You probably won't find them around much anymore, but it's a gasket cutter, but for cutting big circles. So at any rate, let me get that set up, and we'll show you what we got happening with that. Okay, this is an All-Pax extension gasket cutter, manufactured by the All-Pax company in I don't know how you pronounce that. Somewhere in New York. Any rate, this is what's in it. This little bag right here. Some extra blades. This is the cutter itself. Don't need any of that stuff. So, it has a razor blade cutter on it, and then it has these little centering pins. A whole bunch of them, actually. I guess they expect people to break that stuff an awful lot. But what you have here is you've got a scale. You've got 0 being where your cutting blade is. Now the cutting blade's retracted. I got to get the screwdriver out and undo it. But then, and this is to the center. So, what we got to do is we take our gasket here and we'll measure. The outside diameter of the gasket is 8 1/8. 8 inches. We'll say 8 inches. Okay? So, because this is, you know, the distance from the center line to the outside, we've got to set that at 4. And so we're going to set that at roughly 4 1/16. I think that's a 16th. At any rate, the outside diameter is not super critical on this. Tighten that down. We've got a nice piece of cork gasket material. Okay. I was mistaken. This actually sets your diameter. So if you took a tape measure, and I'm just finding, this is the first time I've ever used this tool, folks, so bear with me, I'm learning too. So on the scale here, 1 inch on their scale is only a 1/2 inch. So basically, this scale is for diameter. So we set that to 8 1/8. Right there. Put that pin in it and find our screwdriver. Get our gasket cutting blade extended out. You can see it's sticking out there a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to mark the center line of our material here. And let me find a straight edge. I think that's going to be an easier way to do that. No, that's not long enough. All right, I'll be back. Okay, we're back. We've got a piece of material here that will act as well enough as a straight edge to find the center here. That looks about right. All right, and we will take the center pin, set it right down in there. Come on. And there we have it. We have a nice round gasket. Now we'll measure the inside diameter here, and that's 6 1/8. So we'll go back here, loosen this up, set this at 6 1/8. Right there. Stick the center down in the same center hole. Get this centered up on my block here a little bit better. And there we have it. A nice, perfectly round ring that matches that. Now, in order to get the holes put in it, we're going to get our handy dandy gasket punch set. These are, let's see, yep, 3/8. And just go around. Punch them out. And there we go. We have a new gasket. Let me take the gasket. Get the bolt started. I don't generally use gasket sealer on this stuff with a cork gasket like this. I'll just go get the ratchet and tighten her down. And there we have it. All right, now one of the things that we have to do is we have to replace the fuel tank sending unit, the fuel level sending unit. This is what was in the tank. That is no longer serviceable. I can't even get it to move, nor do I even want to try to get it to move. So, fortunately, back in the hidey hole again, we found found 3 different sending units. Now, I've gone ahead and gone through and tested them and found the best one of the bunch, which is the one I got in my hand here. Okay, we're going to get that sending unit installed. The one thing that I have found is this is a standard you know, a fuel tank sending unit size. And so the gasket, like I said, right there, that's and you can see the part number. And I'm partially doing this so that you guys can see what the part number is if you need to replace a fuel sending unit, but also so that I have a record of it too, because I know I'm going to lose this frickin' wrapper as soon as I get done here. That lined up, and that lined up. Now we had lost one of the screws for the sending unit, and one of them wasn't there to begin with. So we're going to replace all of the screws because the only other ones that I had here were Phillips head screws, and I absolutely freaking hate working on something that has got half of them flat tip screws and half of them Phillips head screws. So we're going to change these all over to Phillips head screws. And these are stainless, so whoever ends up working on this thing next shouldn't have any problem breaking them loose. And I just realized I get to do the installation on the tank plate here twice because I've got that in sideways. Now, was so much fun doing it the first time, I just wanted to do it again. That's how it's supposed to be. Alright, there we go. Now she's ready to go back in the truck. Okay, one thing we almost forgot. The drain plug. Now the original drain plug is right here. That one's in pretty bad shape. So I found another one that's in not quite so bad a shape. We're going to get that installed. A little bit of pipe sealing on it. And the stuff that I use is Arp Thread Sealer. I use it for just about anything automotive related, and never had any issues with it. We'll get the drain plug started in here. Now, for tightening it down, you ever gone to a yard sale or going through your grandpa's tools or whatever and found a socket that looks like this and wondering what the hell that kind of socket's for? This is what it's for. This is so that you can go ahead and take out and install square drive plugs without rounding off the edges like you do with a crescent wrench or something like that. So, at any rate, another tip for the day. Alright, let's get the tank put back in now. There we go. Tank is installed. We just got to get the lines hooked back up. Okay. Oh, that's right. Duh. That one goes there. This one goes here. And normally I like using tubing wrenches whenever I'm working on this kind of stuff, but sometimes you just flat out can't get in where you need to get in with a tubing wrench. That's 3/8. Okay. I'm not sure how the heck this got bent. But for those of you who have never worked with tubing wrenches before, tubing wrenches will keep you from rounding off, or at least help keep you from rounding off the edges of the nuts, especially when you get into you get a tube that's really tight. So that's tubing wrench now. Our wiring. Now this wire here was for the fuel pump, which obviously we don't need, and so we're going to cover that up with some electrical tape. And then this one here is for the sending unit. Get that put in there and check it. Yeah, it's a little off. It's reading a 1/4 tank, but it doesn't have anything in it. So I'll have to make sure I note that when I return it, that when it gets down to 1/4 tank, you best have already looked for fuel. So we'll get some black electrical tape on that, get that buttoned up, and get some fuel in it. Alright, I've had enough of this. This is freaking ridiculous. There we go. These frickin' fuel nozzles are stupid. All right. There we go. Sounds pretty good. We're going to see. Hopefully this fuel pickup works. Well, folks, that's it for this video. We finally worked through all of the issues that we needed to get this, get Chuck's Jeep here running and driving well enough to be able to take it out into the desert and do a cruise. So if you like what you saw, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Keep coming back. As long as you guys keep watching, we'll keep making videos. We got a whole summer full of good stuff coming up. So thanks again for watching.